Hello kittens, Andy Barley here.
And Flo.Spare Pants.
We're here to tell you about Flandy. What's Flandy, Flo?
So it's a podcast we do every fortnight, discussing current events.
And Flandy Flo sounds like the name of a Pokemon.
Flandy Flo.
Flandy Flo.
Wonder what it would look like.
An amalgamation of me and you.
Yeah, with massive eyelashes and a mohawk.
And shit tattoos. So it is available on Podbean, it is available on iTunes, what else?
Spotify.
And...
Google Podcast?
Yeah.
I've actually remembered it.
Well done.
I know.
And... the website.
Oh, yeah.
Flybypants.com.
Hi guys, welcome to my newest episode of Spare Pants. Today's episode is going to be the first of a new series I'm doing. It's going to be all about some mysterious celebrity deaths. Because who doesn't love conspiracy theory? But before I start, I want to mention a book that I absolutely loved. I read it in about 2 days. It's called The Family Upstairs and it's by Lisa Jewell. And the synopsis, I think that's the right word to use. It's about a woman who inherits this huge mansion in Chelsea. And 25 years, I think, prior to her inheriting it, they found 3 decomposing bodies inside this house. And this book basically tells the perspectives of loads of different people. It was so good. I stayed up really late finishing it, and that's a sign of a good book, I think. So I definitely recommend reading that if you like reading like I do. So the first celebrity I'm going to be talking about is Elizabeth Short, mostly known as the Black Dahlia. She died on the 15th of January 1947 at just 22 years old. Now Short has been described as more of an aspiring actress, as although she had aspirations to become a film star, she had no known acting jobs, but I'm still considering her a celebrity, so that's why I'm including her. Her body was found on a sidewalk in Los Angeles and it was extremely mutilated. I don't want to go too much into the gory details, and when I was reading it, it made me feel a little bit sick, like hearing the state her body was in. But her body was basically cut in half, which is gross. There was very little blood at the crime scene, so people think that she was killed in a previous location and her body was just dumped there. Due to the nature of her injuries, some people speculate that the murderer was someone with a medical background, such as a surgeon or a doctor. What was weird about this case is that a few days after the body was discovered, an envelope had been posted which contained some creepy ass shit. Inside was Short's birth certificate, business cards, photos, and just some other bits and bobs. And the packet had been cleaned very carefully. So it must have been sent by the killer, right? So this murder is still unsolved, but there are quite a few suspects surrounding her death. The first suspect is a man called Robert Manley. Manley was the last person known to be seen with her. He was a 25-year-old married salesman, getting with a married man, not the best, who Elizabeth Short was dating at the time. They had a brief trip to San Diego and stayed at the Baltimore Hotel. So obviously he was the prime suspect, as he was the last person with her. They're always the main blame. But another reason people think it was him was that in 1954 he was admitted to an asylum, diagnosed with hearing voices in his head. So people think he had some mental illness issues and was a bit unstable. The second person is a bloke called Joseph DeMays, who was a soldier, and he came forward saying that he had gotten extremely drunk with Short a few days prior to her death, and then he fully confessed to the murder. However, upon investigation, the police found that he was actually at the army base at the time, so there was no chance that he could have killed her. I mean, I don't know why you would lie about that kind of thing, a bit fucked up, but some people do some weird things, don't they? Most people believe that the person who killed Elizabeth Short was a man called George Hodel. Even his son, Steve, has said that his father murdered her. I mean, you must be pretty suspicious if your own son goes against you. Now, Steve was only 5 at the time, but he has talked about the massive mansion he lived in with his father, and apparently there was a closed-off room that he was never allowed to enter. Now, George Hodel was actually a doctor, so it would have been very easy for him to perform the injuries found on the body. One of his daughters had actually accused him of sexual assault, so he was obviously a bit of a dickhead anyway. Suspiciously, this wasn't actually the only murder he was accused of. He was also a suspect in the death of his secretary. In fact, the LA police felt they had enough evidence to place bugs in his home. They recorded him saying that now his secretary was dead, there was no way the police could prove that he committed the murder of Elizabeth Short. Why the fuck wasn't he arrested? There's 2 potential reasons why he wasn't arrested and charged. The first was that the case was dropped due to incompetence. The second reason, and probably the most viable, was that he paid off the cops. The LA Police Department was known for being very corrupt at the time, and Hodel was a very rich man. So I've mentioned that his son Steve believes that his father was guilty. Now, Steve grew up to be a police officer, and when he retired in 1986, he started investigating the case in his own time. He found pictures in an album of his father's, and they looked a lot like Elizabeth Short, but forensic investigators weren't 100% convinced. But then when facial recognition became a thing, there was a 90% match in the pictures, which is weird to have loads of pictures of this woman. Furthermore, Steve went back to the mansion he grew up in with a sniffer dog, which was trained to find blood and human remains. And guess what the dog found? Blood and human remains and stuff. I mean, I personally think this bloke is obviously the killer. There's just too much evidence against him. Unfortunately, he died in 1999, so he wasn't charged for the murder, which is disgusting, and kind of shows how shitty the police can sometimes be. Now, the next celebrity death I'm going to be talking about is super famous, and it's the death of Marilyn Monroe. Monroe was an extremely well-known actress, model and singer, and there's a lot of conspiracies surrounding her death. Monroe died on August the 4th, 1962, and her death was ruled as an overdose. I think she took loads and loads of sleeping pills, that's what I heard. Marilyn Monroe had dealt with substance abuse and mental illness throughout her life. At 3 a.m. on the 5th of August, her housekeeper, Eunice Murray, noticed that Marilyn had locked herself in her bedroom. And then when her housekeeper looked through her bedroom window, she noticed that Marilyn was completely unresponsive. So one of the first theories is that the Kennedys were involved. Everyone knows who John F. Kennedy was, right? He was the 35th US president, and off topic, but he was, oh my god, so gorgeous. But anyway, there are loads of rumours that Marilyn Monroe was having sexual relations with both John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert Kinky. So people think that US officials used their resources to get her killed. Apparently she openly admitted it to her close friends. I mean, JFK was pretty hot, so I would be bragging about that as well. Also, apparently Marilyn had like this little red diary, which she was writing government secrets in. Another reason for her to be killed. A coroner who worked at the morgue where Marilyn's body was, they claimed to have seen the diary, and allegedly her body was covered in tons and tons of bruises, which is pretty odd. There's another theory that the mafia did it. There are reported sightings that the Chicago mafia boss, Giancana, went into Marilyn's LA home. Marilyn was thought to have a relationship with Giancana's henchman, Johnny Roselli, so Giancana wanted her dead. I'm sorry, these mafia names are really difficult to pronounce. But Marilyn was basically threatening to blow the lid off his operations, so he killed her. Now, I swear of loads of celebrity conspiracy theories, aliens are always involved. Conspiracy theorist Dr. Stephen Greer claims Monroe was murdered by the CIA because she knew the truth about Roswell and was planning on spilling the tea. Roswell was a UFO crash in New Mexico in 1947, and JFK told Monroe that he saw things from outer space. Marilyn was threatening to hold a press conference to tell the world what JFK had told her, and she was murdered for this. And the last theory is that Marilyn is still alive. Ooh. Someone claims that Marilyn's death was staged, and her psychiatrist admitted her to a mental institution due to a breakdown that she had. A bloke named John Alexander Baker wrote a book called Marilyn Monroe, Alive in 1984, and he said that Monroe stayed at this institution for 20 years, and that he picked up a hitchhiker in 1984 who claimed to be Monroe. She really resembled her, and had a very similar singing voice, so maybe it was actually her. Last but not least is Nathalie Wood. Nathalie Wood was a huge Hollywood star who was in the film Miracle on 34th Street, which I've never actually seen. I might watch it, as well as many other films. She died on the 29th of November 1981, aged just 43. She spent Thanksgiving weekend on her yacht with her husband Robert Wagner, when she ended up lifeless in the water. The death was marked as accidental drowning, and her body bore a few injuries and bruises, probably caused from falling in the water. Now, accidental drowning seems like a perfectly plausible explanation for her death, right? But people have obviously been researching other theories. So Nathalie went to bed at about 10:45 p.m, and her husband stayed up a little bit later chatting to other guests. And then when he went to bed, he discovered that Nathalie was missing. And then, upon looking around the boat and stuff, the group discovered that the dinghy that was attached to the boat was missing as well. So I think that her body was found about a mile away from the yacht, with the dinghy floating nearby. Her sisters said that Woods had a huge fear of the water, so why would she venture out alone late at night? Some people say that she was trying to retie the dinghy, so she was trying to sleep and she heard the constant banging against the yacht, so she tried to get up and retie it and then fell into the water. But there were alleged rumours that Nathalie and her husband had been arguing on the night of her death. And recently, the skipper, who was on the boat at the time, they went on the Dr. Phil show. Everyone knows Dr. Phil, right? And they claimed that it was the husband who killed her. There was a mark found on her cheek, which suggests that she had been hit. And one of the guests on the boat was Nathalie's co-star, Christopher Walken, and apparently him and Nathalie had been flirting all night. And people have said that her husband said to Walken something along the lines of, "Are you trying to fuck my wife?" Drama. So, I mean, the husband does look pretty suspicious, and apparently the police instigated the case, looked into the husband as well. Let me know what you think. If there's any other celebrity deaths I could do, please let me know. I've got a small list, but I can always do some more suggestions. You can contact me at flo@flabberpants.com or my Instagram, which is f.mcatty. Please listen to my other episodes as well. I'm writing a new one at the moment, and I'm really excited for it. And also listen to mine and my friend Andy's other podcast, Flandy. It is so much fun. Thank you for listening.
We all have that crazy friend who's into conspiracy theories. Well, let me tell you, my crazy friend beats your crazy friend.
They asked me what level of education I had, right? And I said, you mean like my magic level, my attack level? What are we talking about? And they looked at me funny. I said, come on, bro, you can't just have a level of education. What, 10, 20, 100? Where's mine at? What do I do? Where do I go? Well, you're going to tell me I ain't a doctorate now, I ain't got no brain, I ain't got no special abilities or superpowers. Come on, why are you writing all this off like it's nothing? It's possible, it could be possible, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's all just a little bit too much.
The Chronicles of Captain Watt, coming soon to the Flo.Spare Pants projects.